Hey guys, welcome to Eastside JHM.
The online edition.
My name's Joe.
I'm Montana.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jake.
We're coming from Anaheim, La Habra, Bellflower, Redlands, and Park Rapids, Minnesota.
And our ministry exists to help junior high students create friendships, follow Jesus, and make a difference in the world around them.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram and join our texting service to stay updated with some daily and weekly drops. We will be uploading messages, worship songs of the day and week, and some fun things that you can watch while you're scrolling through YouTube and TikTok.
Speaking of having fun, why don't you check this out?
Okay guys, we are gonna play a game called Pixelate, and we are talking about big picture in our message, so we thought this game would be pretty fun to have Kyle and Jake play. So if you guys wanna play at home, you can, or you could just watch them.
A fish.
Whale.
Octopus?
Shark.
Dolphin. Dolphin? God!
Oh!
Dang it.
Boom!
I'm definitely gonna get this one. Bird. Hawk.
Lizard.
Turtle! No.
Penguin. Gorilla.
Alligator.
Oh, croaky!
All right. That's one for me. That's
Yeah, one for you.
Kangaroo.
Fox.
Dog. Cat.
I want
Cat.
fox.
Lion. Bee. I got that first. Yep. I got
A bee?
Yeah.
What? That did not even look like a bee.
A pile of throw up.
It's like a Minecraft character.
It really does. It looks like a cat.
A squirrel.
Ah.
Oh!
That was
That
good.
was a wild guess.
That was good. I respect that. A monkey. Chimpanzee. A
Burrito.
tiger. Lion.
Beaver. Oh.
Every single one I've gotten is like when it's already complete.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Clownfish.
Clownfish.
It looked
What?
like a clownfish.
Lion.
I don't know.
Beaver.
Octopus. Oh, it's already done. It's already done.
Oh my.
Deer.
Whale.
Steven Cobb.
Nate Collier.
Hippo.
You're dominating.
Cat.
Bird.
What is this? Pufferfish.
What? Leopard. Pufferfish.
We were way off. All right. Next.
Doggy.
Horse.
Ooh, I'm going donkey.
Donkey? That's a good. Llama. Alpaca.
Fortnite llama.
Cow. A rhino?
Oh,
Ox?
that's a, what is that, ram?
A ram? A goat. A goat.
Oh, it is a goat. Oh.
We're very bad at this game.
Yeah.
That's last
A whale.
night's dinner.
Last night's dinner, meatloaf.
That is a dog.
That
cow?
is a bird.
That's not a bird, idiot.
What?
That is a tiger.
No, that's a bear.
Lion.
That's a.
I knew it.
Why are you so much better than me?
Awesome, guys. Well, I hope you were better at home than these guys were here. But Kyle, you were our winner today.
Yes, I was.
And you are a winner of this box. Now, there's about 100 things of toilet paper in here, and I swear you
man.
could probably sell them for at least $50 a roll.
Lord
So,
knows I need it.
yes, this is all for you. But other than that, why don't we head back to the studio and see what Joe has to say for us?
Kyle, can I just have one, please?
No.
Just spare square.
No.
Come on.
No,
People are so
absolutely
scarce
not.
nowadays. I need it.
Absolutely not.
Come on.
Hey JHM, I'm Joe Schmaltz and I'm one of the pastors at Eastside. These past few weeks, so much of the news has been focused on what is now being called a global pandemic. And we've experienced the rise of uncertainty, fear, and anxiety about what happens next. Maybe you're totally clueless to the news. You know, that's okay. Or maybe you've heard your parents talking about it a little. Or maybe you've been binge watching CNN for all the coronavirus updates. I don't know. But no matter what you know, you've probably seen a few funny memes and have heard that there is literally no toilet paper available anywhere. Yikes. Regardless of what you know or not, I'm sure you've gotten the sense that something isn't right. And over the past few days, I've thought and prayed many times about you and how you're feeling and navigating the scenario that is unfolding around you. And in light of that, we're starting a brand new series called Big Picture. Have you ever seen a picture that is zoomed in on just one thing? It's focused so close on just one detail that it's hard to even tell what you're looking at. And if somebody were to ask you to describe the bigger picture surrounding that one detail, well, there's just no way. That's because when you're only focused on one detail, the bigger picture is almost impossible to see. I think it's easy for all of us to live our lives as one of those zoomed in blurry photos. It's easy to get so focused on one detail like what your home life is like, or the one embarrassing event that happened at school yesterday, or one scary circumstance like COVID-19, that it makes it really hard to see the bigger picture, the bigger story that God is writing around us. And when that happens, we tend to miss out on some of the really important stuff that God's doing in our lives. So in this series, we're gonna look at the life of one of the Bible's greatest heroes, a guy named Joseph. And if you don't already know the Joseph story, his life was filled with crazy, unexpected, out of control highs and lows that certainly made seeing the bigger picture of what God was doing a challenge. Here's a quick look at Joseph's life.
So Jacob goes on from there to have 12 sons, big family. But Jacob loves his 11th son, Joseph, way more than all the others. And so he gives him the special Technicolor dream coat. And his brothers, because of this, come to hate him.
So much so that they plan on killing him.
But they don't. They instead just sell him as a slave down in Egypt.
Now, while in Egypt, through this crazy series of events, Joseph goes from being in a prison cell to becoming the second in command there.
And so later on, the whole Middle East falls into this food shortage. And Joseph's brothers, they come down to Egypt looking for food. And then when they get there, who should they find as the ruler of the whole land?
It's Joseph, that guy they sold into slavery. But he actually saves them from starving to death.
Our hope is that by taking a closer look at some of the stories from Joseph's life, we will help you see that not only was God writing a bigger and better story in his life, but he's doing the same in yours, even if you can't always see it. Now, before we jump into Joseph's story today, I have a question for you. What's the most devastating experience you've ever had? When your team blew its shot at the championship title in that last quarter? When your friend got more followers than you on Instagram? When someone else earned the lead in the school play or the first chair in the school orchestra? I don't know what it is for you, but when I was in middle school, my friend Rudy assured me that he could find me a girlfriend. Rudy was super popular and was literally friends with everyone. So I went to school the following day with this incredible confidence that it was going to be a great day. So at lunch, he paraded me around campus asking girl after girl if they thought I was cute or if they would go out with me. And girl after girl shook their head, laughed, and showed utter disgust at me. And what I thought was going to be the best day ever turned out to be the absolute worst. I was devastated, defeated, embarrassed, and hit an all-time low. We all know what it feels like to feel devastated in life. Because honestly, life sometimes just feels like one long series of highs and lows. Sometimes you ace that test you studied for all week, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes your parents let you stay up late to watch movies, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes that girl that you like feels the same way about you, and sometimes she doesn't. Highs and lows, right? Of course, when life is going good, we love it. We feel great about life because things are just going our way. But almost as quickly as the highs come, so do the lows. And when those lows happen, the difficult, tough, painful things, suddenly life doesn't feel so great. We can feel uncertain, anxious, and even hopeless. Some of you know that because you've dealt with the difficult circumstances in the past. Some of you may be dealing with a few in your life right now. Maybe you have parents who are super critical or hard on you. Or maybe you've just been forced to move schools or change friend groups and you feel really lonely or left out. Maybe you're struggling with the end of a relationship or a friendship and you don't know how to handle the rejection and the hurt you're feeling. Or maybe you're dealing with things like death or abuse or divorce or illness or brokenness in your home. Or maybe you're just out of toilet paper. No matter the circumstances you may have faced in the past or the one that you might be dealing with right now in this moment, the reality is that difficult seasons in life are coming. They are an unavoidable part of being human. We've all got something in our lives that causes us pain or heartache or disappointment. And when we're in the middle of it, it's hard to see the bigger picture. In fact, it's hard to see anything other than the hurt, the frustration, the loneliness, the fear, the anger that we feel because of the circumstances that we're in right now. But what if there was more to it than that? What if there was a way to get through our lows and see a bigger picture that we might just be missing all along the way? Now, if there is anybody who understands what it feels like to be in the middle of a pretty big low, it's our pal Joseph. He was the second youngest of 12 brothers, which could seem like a difficult position to be in by itself. Add to it that the fact that Joseph was his father's absolute favorite son. And you've got a recipe for a pretty big family feud. Joseph's brothers disliked him for the way that their father loved him. They were jealous, hurt, and angry, so much so that they came up with a plan to hurt Joseph. Take a look. They saw in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Genesis 37:18. Whoa, that escalated quickly. Joseph's brothers didn't do what most older siblings do when they're mad. They didn't decide to shove him in a closet or lock him out of the house or embarrass him in front of his friends. No, they literally made a plot to kill him, to end his life. That's a pretty big deal. Let's look at what happened next. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe that he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Genesis 37:23-24. At this point, you might be thinking two things. One, that Joseph's brothers were bad news. Yep. And two, that you want to know more about this whole cistern thing. I feel you on both accounts. Joseph's brothers were bad news. And basically, a cistern is simply a well, a large, deep hole in the ground that it fills with water. And when people needed to get water for cooking or for drinking or washing, they simply dropped a bucket connected to a rope deep down into the well, and they scooped up the water and they brought it back up using the rope. Now, let's get back to our story. At this point, Joseph's brothers hadn't killed him yet. But as soon as he got within their reach, they took the robe that he was wearing, a really special robe that his father had given him, and they threw Joseph into the empty well. Now, if I was Joseph and had been thrown into a well, I think this is the ultimate low point in my life. My brothers just betrayed me, stole me, and left me for dead at the bottom of a well. I mean, could it get much worse than that? But as the narrative unfolds, we see that Joseph's brothers ultimately decided not to kill him. Instead, they made some money. They sold Joseph to a group of people who took him as a slave to Egypt. And then Joseph's brothers took the robe that they'd stolen from him, they soaked it in animal blood, and they took it back to their father, leading him to believe that his beloved son Joseph had been killed. If this sounds like the plot of the next hit show that you're going to watch on Netflix, it's because it could be. I mean, everything about Joseph's life changed in this passage of Scripture, and definitely not for the better. He experienced one horrible event after another. While your story may not be like Joseph's, you probably know the feeling of being in a difficult situation, and you might have experienced pain in your life in a way that you can probably relate to Joseph. I think we all can. Here's what I think is so interesting about the particular passage of Scripture. The entire narrative is about Joseph and the things that happened to him. But he never spoke a word or uttered a response. At least that's what's recorded. He had no control over what was happening to him. He couldn't do anything about it. And as far as we know, he didn't have a chance to speak up or stop it. The circumstance Joseph was in was totally, completely out of his control. And a lot of times, our lows come the same way. We find ourselves in situations that feel scary or hopeless, difficult or painful, and we feel totally and completely out of control. We have no words, no power, and no control. It's just happening to us. And like Joseph, there isn't anything that we can do to stop it. That's a pretty hopeless place to be, isn't it? I don't know about you, but if I found myself being sold out, thrown away, or completely and totally lost like Joseph was, I certainly wouldn't see the bigger picture. It's hard for me to see any purpose beyond the circumstances I'm in right now. If someone told me that God was working on a bigger picture or writing a bigger story that I just couldn't see in the moment, I think it would be hard for me to believe them. But then, just a few chapters later in Joseph's story, comes this simple verse that I think gives us an idea of the bigger picture that we can hold on to in the middle of our circumstances. The Lord was with Joseph, Genesis 39:2. 5 words, that's it. When his brothers were attacking him, when he was tossed into the well, when he was left for dead, when he was sold into slavery, God was with Joseph. Even when he couldn't see it or didn't feel it or had no idea what was going to happen next, God was with him. And that's the bigger picture that I want you to see in the midst of your circumstances today. When you can't see the bigger picture, remember that God is with you. In whatever pit that you feel like you're in, God is in it with you. In whatever circumstance that feels out of your control, God is in it with you. In whatever loss you're facing in your life right now, God is with you. That's the bigger picture, the thing that will help you hang on and carry on no matter what you're facing. Now, I know that phrase, God is with you, can be a little confusing. I think part of that is because we hear it and think that means that he's going to change our circumstances. If he's with us in the pit, then that means he's going to pull us out of the pit and turn things around, right? Well, yes and no. God is always working for your good. He wants what's best for our lives. So when we're facing difficult situations of any kind, we can certainly believe that he's working to make those things better in his time. But it may not happen right away. It may not happen in the way that we expect it to happen. And while we're waiting, God is there with us. If he doesn't pull us out of the pit, he gets right down in the pit with us. And until things change, we can cling to the fact that he's there with us. We aren't in it alone. So if you're facing a deep loss, a difficult circumstance, or a painful experience right now in your life, here's what I want you to know. When you can't see the bigger picture, remember that God is with you. And we can start by doing these things, especially in light of our current crisis. Choose faith over fear. Believe that God is with you. For some of you, the best thing you can do right now is simply remind yourself daily that God is with you. He's with you in whatever you're facing. Every day when you wake up, before your feet even hit the floor, take a moment to remind yourself of this truth. God is with me. Say it out loud. Write it on a note. Put it beside your bed. Pray it as a prayer. Post it on your mirror. Whatever you have to do to remind yourself that God is with you where you are. Let that be enough to get you through one day. And then tomorrow, do the same. One day at a time, remind yourself that God is with you in your pain, in your loss, in your uncertainty. Number 2, look for God's presence around you, and then look for his presence to prove it. It's one thing to say that God is with us, and I believe that's true, but it's another thing to begin to see him with us. God shows himself to us in so many ways, through music, through nature, through scripture, through our friends, through our family, through our church, through our small group leaders. He will even speak to us in our hearts. Number 3, practice social distancing, but not social disconnection. I mean, it really is a bummer that we're not meeting over the next few weeks in JHM, and that this coronavirus circumstance may keep us from seeing each other more often and feeling more isolated. But please, do not do this alone. Follow JHM on our website at eastside.com or on Instagram, through our texting service. We're going to be posting a bunch of fun and encouraging content over the next few weeks. Reach out to your small group and your small group leader, or maybe they'll reach out to you. We are all in this together. So this week, as you're remembering that God is with you, keep your eyes open to see Him in all things, whether it's a worship song that you hear on Spotify, or the trees outside your bedroom window, or verses in the Bible that you read in the morning. Look for His presence in the way that your friends make you feel better, or how your parents take care of you, or the way your small group leader encourages you. All those things are evidence of God's presence with you right here and right now, and they'll help you get through any circumstance, big or small, that you may be facing. So when you can't see the bigger picture, remember, God is with you. As you reflect, I want you to think about this one question. What's one way I know God is with me? While you're at it, here are a few more questions that you may want to think about. Just pause the video so that you can take some time to work through each one.